a sad fate. Engine in a box. Well, let's get her back together. Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering and Adventures. I don't know if you remember, but at least 2 weeks ago, there's a joke in there. My buddy always says everything's going to take 2 weeks, but at least 2 weeks ago or more, myself and a friend of mine took apart his Suzuki DR350 engine to find out why it was making noises. And we found this counterbalancer gear. Actually, the pin from this gear had gone astray and into the engine, therefore disconnecting this gear and the counterbalancer from the crankshaft and caused the counterbalancer to make a slight contact with the engine. Fortunately, he stopped it. I don't believe there's any damage. Today we are going to get this engine together and we're going to do a Tom's Tinkering and Adventures fix on this. Maybe it's not the best fix in the world, but I believe it's going to work. We're just gonna get this thing going. It's about time. I don't know how well you can see the little damage right there, or contact. So what happens on this, and I'll try to remember to link the other video, is this hole here is what keeps these two together. The pin goes through here and here, locks these two together. Well, in Suzuki's infinite wisdom, they drilled that hole all the way through instead of making a blind hole. So over the many miles, this thing is supposed to be kind of press fit, and it loses its press fit. Look at that, it fell straight through. I have to dig it out of there, but there's several things you can do to fix this. You could bore both of these out to a little bit larger hole. You could try to get that tack welded in there. I don't know how smart it is to weld right on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to degrease this thing really well using some brake cleaner. And I am going to mix up some JB Weld. And I am going to plug the bottom of this hole so that it is not a through hole. This JB Weld, pretty darn good stuff. I'm sure some of you are probably cringing right now at the thought of this whole plan, but all it has to do is keep that pin from going through. It's not doing anything as far as holding structure or anything like that. So as long as it bonds to this material, which this should have no problem bonding to it, all it has to do is prevent that pin from going through. So I'm gonna get her cleaned up and we'll see how she looks. Okay, so I sprayed through the hole in there with brake cleaner to degrease everything. I also used some of this, there you go, high strength retaining type thread lock such stuff, and installed this. Then what I did is I measured how much is protruding from here, because that's how much is going to go in there. Transcribe that over to a drill bit of the appropriate size, so I know when we fill this thing up with a little bit of JB Weld that it has to have at least that much room, or this pin won't fit in there. So I'm going to mix up the two-part epoxy JB Weld. We're going to fill that hole. I'm going to put tape on the bottom of it. I'll probably fill it from the top, and anything that I don't get cleaned up well enough, you know, after the fact, we can just lightly clean it by hand with the drill bit. I hope. JB Weld has been mixed up and installed. Don't know how well you can see in there. So now we're going to let that sit. It's got a set time of 4 to 6 hours, cure time of 15 to 24 hours. We'll just let this sit for a day, and then we'll come back and start assembling this engine. Ice cream truck, dogs, they got all kinds of background noise. I don't know how well you can see in there. There's the stop made out of JB Weld. I removed the tape off the back. It's nice and smooth under there. Can you feel it? There you go. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to install this gear, which ties the crankshaft to the counterbalancer, which was our main reason we took this thing apart. I'm going to try a little bit of this retaining type thread lock on this pin. I don't know if it's going to do anything for us or not, but I imagine it can't hurt. I hope it can't hurt. Now, let's see if we can see it. Can you see that right there? There's a dot right there, and on this counterbalancer there is also a dot right there. Bring it in closer. So we just have to make sure those dots are touching. That's what times the counterbalancer, so that it is turning at the right time with the crankshaft, creating a counterbalance. I know it's a crazy world we live in when things make sense. All right, we are timed correctly now. Get this thing to drop into here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Dot, dot. This thing is in there. All right. Now all I have to do is clean up this surface here. Clean up all the little bits and pieces that have fallen in here over the last 2 weeks plus. And then I'm going to apply some silicone sealer here, whatever's called for in the manual. And we'll put the two halves together. There we go. Apply a light coat of non-hardening liquid gasket. Non-hardening. So make sure you read that. I had a couple different kinds in my current stash. The only one that's going to work right now is this high temp RTV silicone, which is fine. It's just a orange, which isn't a pretty color for this, but that's okay. So it shows where to apply it. So I'm going to hit it up on here after I have already cleaned it, and then we'll put these two halves together. I don't know how well we're going to be able to see here because I'm going to try to work on this, and it's not always an easy job. It's usually quite difficult to get these two halves to meet up where you want them to. But you just have to have a little bit of finesse. Sometimes a little bit of cursing helps, if that's your thing. Sometimes they just kind of slip together. So we'll see how this fiasco works. We're getting there. We're getting there. Well, here's one of the problems that can happen. Let me show you something. This shaft right here slid out this way, and now we've lost our timing on that. So it's one of the things you got to be careful. I'm going to split them back apart, reset that, and we'll reattack this. This thing's been a little bit of a fighting against me, but I found a small drift that I had that fit through here nicely. Another one here. Kind of keep things lined up. And then I'm just kind of going around gently, tap it together. You don't want to go too crazy with it. But little by little, it'll come together. And then once you have it all together, then you're going to want to go through and make sure that the gears are moving and stuff. So I'm almost to that point. I have a very small gap left to fill there. So I'll tap it together and then we will install the bolts. And if you drew yourself a nice picture like this, you'll know exactly where every bolt goes. And we will look in here and it'll tell us what to torque those to. It'll be in here somewhere. Well, what I mentioned about shifting through the gears, you really can't shift through the gears, but you can turn the gear selector drum down here as you turn the input and the output on the other side, and feel that it's moving smoothly, and that feels pretty good to me. I think somewhere around here should be neutral, or maybe have it completely the other direction. Sometimes you have to use two hands, this one on the front and this one on the back, and then you need a third hand. It's kind of fun sometimes. But it feels okay to me. So now what we're going to want to do is start assembling everything here. And I'll try to kind of show you what I'm doing as I go, but this could take a good hour or so to put this all together. So I think what I'm going to start with is whatever's in the back here, which is going to be my shifter selector stuff. We'll do that first and then move our way out. There's all of our bits and pieces that all go in here. And here's the manual, kind of showing us how to put it together. It is a pain. I'm going to let you know that right now. There's little springs inside of here, and then these little pins right here. Go in there, held with that spring tension. And then you got to get these in there and then fit it all into there. So I'm going to do it and I'll show you what it looks like when it's together, because this could be fun. Some real fiddly work right here. So if you're doing this, I would kind of recommend maybe getting a big plastic bag and doing it all inside of there, because I already had one of those little pins go flying. Fortunately, I found it. But this is what it's supposed to look like when it's together. It took me a little while. My trick was getting one side done, and then I used a piece of tape, taped it down, and then did the other side, then put it in here, and then I was able to remove the tape. Now the next thing you want to do is line this up over here onto the shift drum. Don't forget this little piece goes behind it first. Install this over the shift drum. It only goes one way. There we go. Now this bolt gets installed with Loctite and torque down, and then this little cover goes over the whole thing as well. And these bolts get installed. I think they have Loctite as well, so read the freaking manual. That's what you should look like all said and done. Pretty big pain in the butt. Next, we will get this little stopper for this installed, and that goes underneath here. Something like that. And then there is a spring that goes from here to, well, let's find out where that's supposed to go, huh? I don't remember where that goes. Ah, it goes forward. Right there, that little tab. I'm gonna get this installed. I'll show you what it looks like. Next piece to install will be this shift shaft. Try to say that 5 times fast. There you go. Okay, now we're going to get the primary gear installed. Let's see, Kickstarter gear and the clutch basket. Read the manual. I'll maybe show you a couple steps in the middle here, but like I said, I don't want to make a 2-hour-long video. All right, so there's like 3 gears on here. First one is the cam chain drive gear. The next one is the oil pump drive gear, and then this one is basically it's your primary gear that drives your clutch. So this is a reverse threaded bolt, or nut, excuse me. So in order to tighten this, we have to hold the crankshaft. So what we're going to do is we're going to install this clutch basket. And I'm going to get a soft, like a piece of aluminum, and I'm going to stick it between the gears here as I tighten this. I guess I'll have to put it on the top side. And that's basically going to lock the gears, and then I'll be able to torque that down. There we go, torqued. We got our cam chain on here, kind of. Make sure that you have that engaged. See how it's not really engaging on those teeth there? That can be problematic. Next, we're going to install this clutch, and we have a brand new set of clutch discs. So those need to soak in a little bit of oil, but we can install this washer here. And I believe I have a new one of these here as well. And we're going to torque that down. Probably doing the same thing. Going to have to hold it over here again. It's starting to look beautiful. I'm excited. I don't know about the rest of y'all. I'm just excited to get this box of parts out of my garage more than anything. So now we're just going to start installing these. One friction and one plate, just like that. Read the manual. Once you get your last friction plate installed, you can install the pressure plate here. And this nice set of Barnett clutch plates and discs came with some heavy-duty springs. And then we're just going to install these bolts and tighten them down evenly, and then check to see if there's a torque value for these. I don't know if there is or isn't. Some of the items in this book just say to fasten securely. And these are very small bolts threaded into aluminum. So you want to be very careful. Always be very careful on these small bolts. You don't want to break them off. You don't want to strip out the aluminum. And with that, we are done with this side. Unfortunately, my buddy did not order a new gasket here. So I'm just going to put this cover on here kind of as a cover. Keep things from falling apart and to keep things from getting in here until we get the gasket. Oh, one thing, when you install these on a DR350, you have to line up. It's easier if I show you with this off. So got a little bit ahead of myself. On here there are teeth, and in there are teeth. So you have to line that up. It can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. Sometimes it goes perfect, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm sure now that we're on camera, it's not going to go perfect. because that's the way it goes. And while y'all weren't looking, I installed the stator cover as well. And that gasket is kind of crappy as well. Better than this one. I put a little bit of sealant on it, but we're going to order these two gaskets. So we got one lower end completed. All right, in the interest of not making these videos an hour long, I am going to end this video here. So this is DR350 lower end engine install, or lower end engine assembly. The next video we will assemble the top end and install it and get this puppy running. Sound good to you? Sounds good to me. All right, if you're digging what I'm putting out, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and if you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. Thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.